Knuckles Comic Issue 11. I'm confused. First, Aether says in the previous issue that there's no hope and no escape, and now he's telling Knuckles that nobody's gonna die in a deadpan way that implies it should be obvious to him. So does he have hope for the situation or not? We see someone get saved from a heroic sacrifice by Aether making him levitate above the lava, although I can't help but wonder why the falling man didn't just glide over to the nearby wall and climb up it himself. I guess those are abilities exclusive to Knuckles. But it's just so hard to believe that because when I played as Tikal in SC2, she could glide and climb too. So that implied that those were Echidna abilities in general. Also, I don't see why Knuckles is bothering to ask himself how Aether saved the guy when it's obvious he's in league with the Ancient Walkers and that's how he could do that. Either that or it's a Guardian ability. After Knuckles saves a civilian from the Wandering Tribe and gets burned all over, his burns magically disappear right before the person's eyes. Aether decides not to simply say I did it, or explain how otherwise it happened, and everyone gets floated upwards away from the ground as it's turning into lava below them, with it being implied that Aether is doing this too. Then a text blurb implies that Knuckles himself somehow used his own powers subconsciously to heal his burns, as the text talks about Knuckles being really magical for an Echidna as if it's an explanation. I have a hard time believing he could have healed his own burns subconsciously without knowing he could do it, when that's not an innate Echidna ability in the first place, so it has no reason to be instinctive to him. Finally, I go from bored from the Wandering Tribe who will predictably all survive, to excited again at seeing the Chaotix show up to the Constable for questioning. Huh? The Constable, instead of questioning the Chaotix about Julie, instead says about her, despite my recommendation otherwise, meet your new partner. Well, I'm assuming it's Archimedes who convinced him of this, but he was all set to throw the book at her before. At least this will force the Chaotix to spend some quality time with her as a friend and finally get it through their heads that she's not that evil. Or Vector's anyways. Knuckles finally asks Aether why he decided not to be a Guardian anymore, although I can't help but wonder why it took him this long to ask this important question. Good, we're finally getting a backstory for this guy. Aether's childhood was very much like Knuckles' growing up on the floating island, although it's a reverse situation for him that his father was the one who was absent, having died when he was an infant, while his mother was the Guardian instead. I really love the idea of a female Echidna Guardian. It reminds me of Tikal. It sounds like a motherly figure, being the mother of the Emerald. Aether used to accompany his mother while she was restoring order to the island, which included talking to a random overlander, because I guess humans are living on the floating island too. Really, I preferred if it was only Echidnas, like would have actually made sense considering history, but whatever. It's explained that Aether didn't even know he was being prepared to become a Guardian himself, which is hard to believe since Knuckles knew, and it's hard to believe that since he should have known that every single Guardian, except the first one of course, was prepared to be the next Guardian by the previous one. It's common sense. When he saw his mother go to the Forbidden Zone, vanishing into a wall of flame, he accepted his duty as the Guardian, but unlike Knuckles, the Ancient Walkers came to him telling him that he was needed more elsewhere. Then the Ancient Walkers had shown Aether, to his absolute shock, the Wandering Tribe living on the surface of the planet. I hate how a villager says he's the other, and then another one says the Mitra. I hate that word because I can't really tell how to pronounce it, so I'm just gonna call them guides. One says the other, another says the Mitra, all matter of fact while expecting him and the audience to immediately know what they mean. They could have just immediately explained themselves instead of wasting our time. This Wandering Tribe already knew about Aether's arrival as their guide to the end of the journey, probably because the Ancient Walkers who serve as their guardian told them ahead of time. Then I'm probably confused as hell when it's explained that their destination is not just any old land they can call home like it would be reasonable, but instead it's a fabled land where their kind came from, their homeland. What? Okay then, why not just settle for any old land they can call home? No wonder they spent so long wandering around. It's their own damn fault because they're too picky. And if Aether could just teleport around wherever he wants thanks to the Ancient Walkers, he should just be able to teleport the tribe to their destination. Aether from that moment on chose to be their guide, but was faced with the question of who would be the next Guardian. So he gave his mother a surprise visit in Haven, or rather the Ancient Walkers brought him there without him knowing about Haven, because I guess they've spent millennia gathering information on the world, and thus know about this place when he doesn't. Oh, that's actually really sweet. His mother actually approved of him going to be a guide for the Wandering Tribe. I thought he was going to force her to become the Guardian again to take his place and cause tension, but instead she was very understanding. Aether explains that the Brotherhood is what Guardians aspire to, and Haven is where they simply go. Ather explains that his wandering tribe follows the trail left behind by their forefathers, a trail which somehow hasn't been long since washed away in the sands of time by weather and corrosion for some reason. He then explains that he succumbed to the soul touch when he met the woman who would become his wife. Oh, that's what it's called! I hate the touch at the end of it. I don't know, it makes it sound creepy and forced on the people involved. Several years later, Ather was told that his mother wasn't long for this world, but rather than taking even a minute to visit her, he just stayed there. And his son, Saber, who was trying to talk some sense into him, went with the ancient walkers and continued the family tradition under the guidance of Archimedes. Knuckles is naturally surprised to learn that Archimedes is that old. Well, I'm not exactly going to question this since it's hard to judge age in an ant, so I can't say he looks any particular age. And we already saw that he was an old friend of Knuckles' father. And he's magical, so. It's explained that fire ants live almost just as long as guardians. Which is how much? Oh, you're not gonna finally clarify that? And you're not gonna explain why guardians live longer than regular echidnas despite being biologically identical? Well then, thanks for nothing. I like how Knuckles actually feels sorry for him when told that Saber still refuses to speak with him. I can understand why Saber would be so angry. Although his father clearly looked really sad at his decision, you'd think that would earn a bit of sympathy points. But come on, he couldn't have told his tribe to stay put while he visited his mother for a while? Were they that impatient? Knuckles questions why another guy didn't take Ather's place. He is pretty old after all. But then Ather explains that according to the tomes of prophecies, he was preordained the last guide. So if he left, they'd lose all hope. As he put it, how could I abandon them at this point? Oh good, they actually addressed the whole Robotnik thing finally. Some swap-bots had tried to capture and enslave Ather's people. The tribe fought back valiantly, but the price being paid was too dear. Although the panels don't immediately make it obvious what he means by that. He does say what was left of it, so I guess that people ended up killed instead. I say killed instead of roboticized because if they were roboticized, they'd be free Robians by now and people in general would be aware of echidnas still living on the surface already. So Ather had to order his tribe to retreat, because defeating all the swap-bots with the power of the Guardian and the Ancient Walkers would be too much work. Funny how selective the Ancient Walkers are in helping them, especially since they said they protect this tribe. Oh, some of them did get roboticized, including Ather's wife. Fuck Logic's end. Now I'm wondering why Knuckles wasn't told about the wandering tribe people on the surface beforehand when these guys were giving back their free will. You'd think he'd get the news. You'd think it'd be like all over the internet if the internet is still around in this point. And at the end of the explanation, Knuckles somehow still has more questions for Ather, but decides to call it a night instead. You'd think there wouldn't be anything left to explain at this point. Now that I'm complaining, I'm enjoying the world building. I like how Ather admitted that he hated to have to take a break from the explaining because he wanted to tell him everything right away. He does deserve to know, but knew that he was overwhelmed by it all. Then Ather tells his friend that this will be their last time they speak together, for once again he has a higher path to follow. So much for never abandoning the tribe then. Instead he's suddenly going to do exactly that, despite saying the tribe will lose hope without him. Wasn't he predestined to lead them to Journey's End? I guess that prophecy isn't too accurate then. And Knuckles wakes up the next morning asking where Ather is, which promptly makes me feel sorry for him since by going to bed early, he cheated himself out of getting some more answers. I love how angry he gets at this, adding this to the list of things he's holding a grudge against him for. But at the same time, he's quickly told that's not fair to judge him. Knuckles is told that now it's his time to be the guide, even though the prophecy said Ather was the last ever guide, so I guess that's officially debunked now. He's given the direction to head towards the rising sun and figure out the rest from there. But there is a lot of faith in him. Knuckles ends up finding a sign mentioning the Kingdom of Mercia, and hopes that the natives will be friendly, which I'm assuming is going to jinx it into them not being friendly, which would be ironic considering the place has the word mercy in the title. Knuckles is told by a woman in the tribe that her brothers have gone missing, and after he tells her to wait here where it's safer, she responds by flipping him over, insisting that she can take care of herself. Good thing she didn't injure her only hope with that. I really like how Knuckles asks her, "You're not related to anyone named Julie Sue by any chance?" while smiling in a friendly way. All because she reminded him of Julie. Of course, logic kicks in as the woman has no idea who Julie is, which makes more sense considering she's part of a wandering tribe and has no last name in common with her. So this goes from her being a relative of Julie that could provide insight into her, to implying that Knuckles just misses his old friend to the point of hoping that this was the case. And then he tells his tribe to camp here until he returns, and the woman suddenly has no objection to this even though she just made a big deal out of him talking as if she couldn't take care of herself. By the way, I just realized that Day of Fury was the day before this, and now it's already over? That's it? No casualties? No fighting a big villain in an arc to make sure no more Days of Fury happen? It just ends? I mean, it's called a Day of Fury, not the week or something, but that's really it? That was pointless. And if Thayer said most people didn't survive the last one, that was the wimpiest apocalypse ever! Unfortunately, members of the tribe get captured by random robots because Knuckles was stupid enough to leave them behind instead of making sure they stayed with him. And I'm not sure who those robots be working for because Eggman's not around and Snively's in prison. And now Knuckles proceeds to completely fail to see his mistake and do it all over again by saying, "Let's split up." Great, let that woman get captured too. Members of the tribe get thrown into the Rock, a prison that it turns out Sonic and Tails were chained up in. I'm guessing these guys were ambushed with knockout casts or otherwise knocked unconscious because that's the only explanation I can think of for why Sonic got captured so easily. I like that Sonic is still staying positive even in his depressing situation, saying cheerfully, "Sonic's the name and escaping's my game." And the story ends with Knuckles being aimed at by an archer from a tree that reminds me of Sonic. Wait a minute, I think I may have already heard about this guy. Can't wait to meet him. So this story was written by Ken Penders, and basically had Thayer finally get a backstory, Julie Sue get released from jail, and the Wandering Tribe get captured by robots and put in the same prison as Sonic and Tails. I'm excited to see who the villain who did that will be, although I'm sure it'll just be Snively, somehow operating from within a cell. And I'm glad Julie got released. It'll get the Chaotix to spend time with her as a friend and get to trust her finally. Although I still feel like her being released felt too easy. It would have been better if I got to see her communities convincing the constable if Julie should be trusted. That would have been a heartwarming confirmation of his friendship and faith in her, but instead we're cheated out of it. And I still think that the Wandering Tribe's destination being a set place their ancestors already left is ridiculous. They wouldn't be wandering for so long if they just learned to settle. I wish they told us that sometimes people leave the tribe out of frustration with all that wandering, and just settle for living in some random suburbs instead. That'd make more sense than all of them putting up with a journey they're clearly miserable with. Almost as if echidnas weren't meant for wasting time living a technology-less, nomadic lifestyle, because they're clearly not happy with it. Also, like, technology-less. It makes more sense, like, these guys are ironically following the rules of the technology ban way better than the people who actually instituted it in the first place. Because they're not living in futuristic cities with skyscrapers and cars and medical technology and like a SWAT team. They're actually living the way I always imagined the echidnas to live ever since I was told about the abandoning technology in the first place. So that's ironic as hell. It would have been better if they just had them looking for any place to call home, left it well enough alone. Next up is issue 58 of the main comic.